Okay, so good afternoon, guys. Welcome to another class, right? So the last class we started off, with getting started with Flutter, where we, kind of looked into Flutter and a few things, right? So today we're going to build up on that, and then we're going to be talking about three things today. We're going to be introducing ourselves to widgets, to layouts, and to gestures, right? And hopefully before the end of today's class, we're able to actually just build out something, right? Something interesting. Okay. So I have my phone set up, right? So whatever we are building, we can actually, see that. So you know the drill. If you have a question, you just raise your hand or you just ask on the chat and I will, give you attention, right? So let's start. Introduction to widgets. Let's start with widgets, right? Now, like I said in the previous class, right? Widgets are everything in Flutter or framework. That's one thing you hear, pretty much, in the Flutter space, right? Everything is a widget, right? Everything is a widget. You're going to hear that a lot. So, did I give a definition of a widget? Did I say what a widget is in the last class? Anybody? Did I actually say what a widget is in the last class? Anybody? Did anybody get that? Anybody? Nobody? Nobody? So maybe I'll just skip it because I know I mentioned it actually. I know I mentioned it. Okay, well, so let's just move on. Right. Excuse me. So widget basically, right, is by definition is the building block of a Flutter application's UI, right? And when I say UI, I mean user interface, right? So it's the building block of what UI. Okay. So that's just from a definition kind of thing, right? Um, Now, there are basically two types of widgets that we are going to be working with. Now, you have already seen one here, right? We have the stateless widgets. Now, stateless widgets are immutable, means that they don't actually what change, right? Their properties can't change. They are final, okay? And they are actually used when, the part of the UI that you're actually describing does not depend on anything that might what change, right? It doesn't depend on anything at all that might what change. Just like we have this currently, this is a stateless widget, right? We're extending a stateless widget here. And we are basically just displaying this word text. Now, this text does not depend on anything for it to change, right? It's just hello world. There's nothing that it depends on for it to say to change to maybe another name or something. No, there's no logic anywhere, right? So it is just what daily should depend. I think this was where we stopped in the last class, right? So that's a stateless what widget. Basically does not actually what hold a state. Okay, it doesn't hold a state. It does not change. There's nothing, there's nothing that actually makes it change. It does not respond to any change. Does not rebuild its UI or something, right? Now, but we also have the stateful widgets, right? Stateful what widgets. These ones, they are dynamic and they can change during runtime, right? Based on either a user interaction, like clicking on a button, entering a text in an input field, or maybe fetching of data, maybe the data you're fetching data from the back end or whatever, right? And that data changes, right? A typical example, maybe your Facebook, where you change your profile picture, right? What happens? Once you change it, it's actually what sends the new one to the server. And what happens? It's also fetched back for you to be able to display it, right? So it's dynamic. Stateful widgets are what dynamic, and they are used in parts of the UI that you are describing that will change, right? So if there's a UI you're describing, remember, we are actually building our UI based on code. We're going to be doing reactive, programming, right? You're building your UI based on code, right? You're basically describing your UI. That's what you can see here. This is basically just description. A scaffold that has an app bar. The app bar has a title, right? And then the scaffold has a body, which has a center widget, and the center widget has a sub widget, which is a child widget, which is a text that shows what Dele should declare. So it's descriptive. So you're describing your UI, right? So if the UI you are describing can change, right, that means that widget is a stateful what widget, right? Is a stateful widget. I could actually test that. We could actually just test that now, right? I can well, just for the purpose of showing you, but don't I can convert this to a stateful what widget, and this is a stateful what widget now, right? And then what happens is I'm now going to see, okay, how can I do something, right? How can I actually what just do something? So let me just play around, right? You may not kind of understand what I'm doing now, but don't worry. But you know how to create a function. So I could just create a function called change text, right? That's what the function is. I want to change a text, right? That's basically what the function is. Now, because I'm using a what's it called? What's it called? A stateless widget, stateful widget. Why? Rather, right? I can actually do some, kind of some kind of manipulation, right? I can actually do some kind of manipulation. So hold on. This is actually in the wrong place. Yeah, so this should be inside of this state class, right? So it has a method called set state. So this set state basically does what? It actually what notifies the framework that an internal state of the object has changed, right? So what do we want to notify the framework that has changed? I'm going to create a let me see. Let me just declare a variable here above it, right? Of course, variable declaration from that. Let me say string, and it's call it, let's just use private variables text, and I'm going to call this hello world, right? Now I want to update this text, right, to welcome to class, right? I want to update what text, right? So I'm passing it in this set what state, and this set state is a method that kind of notifies, hey, there's an object that has been changed. So do something about that, right? That's just it. So to actually test this out, I'm just going to do some stuff here, and I'm going a bit ahead, right? But don't worry, let's just, so I want to kind of, this center, right? I want to kind of introduce you to a widget, which I'll talk about, right? So let me wrap this widget in a column. I want to kind of list things, to kind of be top and bottom. So I'm going to wrap this widget in a column, right? So we have a text here, and then I'm just going to add a button. Now there are several kinds of buttons which you will which you will learn about, right? But don't worry. So this button has two parameters that you have to pass in, more like a compulsory parameter. Now, if you look at this, these are other things you can pass in, but if you see, they have this question mark, and what it means is that they are nullable, meaning that you must not pass in, you must not pass in that function or that parameter. But you can see function here, the onPress function has it, but you can see it has this word required, right? So it is required. Same thing as a child, which is a widget. So you have to give the button a widget also, and it is required. So how we do that, I usually just press Control or space, to get a suggestion. If I don't, I can just, kind of do this. So what I'm just going to do here is I'm going to just call, is expecting a function, right? So I can just use this and just call the change text function, right? I can just call the change text function, and then a child. So the child can just be me giving a text, right? Remember, they are all widgets. Everything is a widget. So I want this button to say click me. So this text is going to be on this. So let me just save this. So let's see how it looks here. So you can see this is how it looks, right? This is how it looks here. And it has this click me, right? So what are we now saying is that currently we want to kind of change the state of this text, right? I can now say, instead of passing this daily should they pay here, I'm going to pass in this variable, right? Which is text. Now, when I run it the first time, because this is a string variable, you can see it's hello world. It's a string, it holds something. I'm just passing that string here into the text, as it variable, text widget rather. So I have what hello world. What I'm doing here is I'm calling this function change text, right? And I want, what does this change text do? It updates the what value of this underscore what text, but it's doing it inside of the set state what function. So once it does it, what happens is that the set state function now notifies the framework, oh, okay, there's a change. So once there's a change, it now what updates. So we should see welcome to what class, right? But hold on, I think I missed something. Okay. So yeah, you can see we have welcome to what class, right? So that's just about stateful and stateless widgets, right? But there's more to it. We're going to cover that in due time. So let's go back. Let's head back to what we actually are talking about. I kind of just digressed a bit, right? So in Flutter, right, widgets can be grouped into multiple categories based on their features, right? We have basically four. We have the let me kind of just probably use this thing here. We have the platform specific widgets. Now, when I say platform specific widgets, basically Flutter has widgets that are specific to a particular platform, Android or iOS. Now, Android specific widgets are designed in accordance with the material design guideline, right, by the Android operating system. So, and those specific widgets, they are called material widgets, right? They are called material widgets. That of iOS, of course, is designed according to the human interface guidelines by Apple, right? And they are called Cupertino widgets. So, material and Cupertino what widgets, right? So Cupertino widgets is for iOS, material widgets is for Android, right? So some of the platform specific widgets that are mostly used, we're already using, like we have the scaffold, the app bar, right? Because if you check now, remember this is your app bar, right? Now, if you notice, Android app bar and iOS app bar are actually different. They are not the same, right? They are not actually what's the same. So even if you build one code base, if you're using a scaffold, the rendering, right, the widget that will be rendered for an iOS will not be the same that will be rendered for the Android, right? Because there are platform specific what widgets. Even in as much as you call scaffold, right, doesn't mean that it's going to be the exact implementation in both operating what system. So you have the scaffold, app bar, we have bottom navigation bar, tab bar view, a lot of them. List tile, we'll get to play around with these things. We have the text field, checkbox, radio, switch button, there's what called alert dialog, right? Simple dialog, pop-up menu, drop-down button, icon button, floating action button also, right? Those are platform specific. And these ones I called are for material widgets. Now, for the Cupertino widgets, you have the Cupertino button, Cupertino date picker, Cupertino tab scaffold, a lot of them. Cupertino tab view and all the likes, right? A lot of them. If you go to the popspec.yaml, you can see the dependency here, right? You can see the following adds the Cupertino icons to your application, right? So you have Cupertino dependency here also, right? So that's just, this one shows that it uses material design. So that's just that's basically that, right? So now let's now really kind of drill down a bit, okay? So we're going to look at the next grouping of widgets, which is the layout widgets, right? The layout widgets, right? The layout widgets. So layout widgets basically, because in one thing, the thing is in Flutter, you can actually create, you can create a widget by composing one or more widgets. Okay, so to compose multiple widgets into a single widget, Flutter has, like a number of widgets for that. A typical example is the center widget, which we have here, right? The center widget. So the center widget is actually a layout widget. It's just it acts as the layout. And what happens, you use it to build two or more multiple widgets, just like we have the center here, right? And then we now have column, we now have text, we have elevated button, right? So some of the popular layout widgets are container. We're going to be playing around with them. Container, center, row, we have column, which we just used, and stack. So container is just a rectangular box that is decorated using what we call a box decoration widget. We'll use it. It has a background, it has a border. Let me just, so this is it here. So when I just okay, container, right? So this is a container widgets. You can see it has, some properties there that can be used: background, border, shadow, height, constraints, clip behavior, and a lot of all these things. Some of these things you have to try them out to really listen. So center is just to use to center a child widget, which we just used here for these three things, right? We have row. So just like column arranges things vertical direction, row arranges it in the horizontal direction. And then we have stack, right? We have a stack. Stack is actually used to arrange widgets one above another, right? One above another. It has some properties called, you have the text direction. They have children, right? Because it's a combination of, it has other widgets in it. And the thing about the children is you can now pick a, let's say I choose a particular widget like a text right here. Basically I have to position it. That's the thing about, what's it called? You can see data is just here, right? It's in this column, right? I have to position, the, what's it called? The particular widget, right? Let's say I have another one here. So I think yeah. So let's say I have another one here. So you can see I have two text this in here, but you're just seeing only one, right? You're just seeing only one. So it's actually just placing placing them on top of each other, just like what a stack is, right? If you kind of want to see the other one, right, we can wrap it with what we call a position widget, right? So this will actually choose, okay, where do you want it, right? Now in positioning, you can now choose, okay, find the left, right, top, bottom. I could say, okay, left, let's say 3. We'll get to actually, test some of these things out, right? So you can see it has shifted 3, more like 3 spaces to the left, right? So it's just like a distance kind of thing, right? If I say 30, right, you can see, so it just comes out, right? I think 30 probably is even too much considering, the width of the stack, right? Considering the width of the stack and everything, right? So, yeah, that's just kind of, I'm just introducing you to some of these widgets, right? Okay, so then the third category of widgets is the state maintenance widgets, which we kind of talked about earlier, which is the stateful and stateless widgets, right? Stateful and stateless widgets. And then the last one is the platform independent, or just call them basic widgets. So they have nothing to do with, and they're not really, they're not dependent on a particular platform, right? They're not dependent on a particular platform. Examples are the text widgets, right? So we have this text. Now there's also So basically your text widget, you use it to display a piece of string. That's all. You can style the string, right? After giving it the, listen, you can style the string using a text style class, right? Text style, let's see. And then in the text style, you can do a lot of things like, let's say, color. I could say the color of data should be, I can use colors, the colors class, colors dot, let's say amber, right? So let me just take out this position stuff and then save. So you can see, right? So that's like style. You're basically styling your text. There are a lot of styles available for you, like font size, font style, font weight. Font weight, I could just say font weight dot bold, right? There are a lot of styles available to you, and you can see that it's bold. Okay, so that's what a text widget is used for. Now, but text widget actually has a special constructor called text.reach. Now, let me show you. Basically, what it does is that it accepts the child of a type called text span, so that you can actually just style, specify a particular string with a different kind of what style, and it's actually recursive. So let me show you an example. Text, right, dot reach. Okay, so it takes in a what text what span. So I'm going to say text span, right? And the text span takes in what it kind of takes in a kind of a lot of what's it called? It has children basically, meaning that you have to give it some strings. So I'm going to call the children, which it takes a list of what that, and then just to explicitly define that all what I am giving here is a text span. Now, if it's children, is a list. So we're going to use the square bracket because it's a list, right? And then I'll now say text span, which takes a text property. I'm going to say this is, so sorry, put that in. Yeah, that's the only thing I probably want to put there, and I want to give it a style of let's just say text style, and just change only color. Colors dots, what are we going to use now? So let's use deep orange, right? Now I can also now pass in another text span and give it a different kind of this styling. So I'll say this is a text span, and then the color for this I'll probably just use something different. Let's use a brown, right? So when I just Control S, or maybe just click on this hot reload, Control plus F5, right? You can see this is a text span, right? So it's still in a stack. That's why you can see this one behind here. So I can just remove this widget, which is the stack widget, so that I just have only this, right? Yeah, so you can see this is a text span. So I can add a space here so that it kind of just looks okay. So that's actually the text widget, right? So take note. So the most important properties of this text widget that you may use, of course, we have max lines, right? It's also a property. So when I put a comma after a particular item and I click enter, it goes to the next line. So you see all this whole const stuff, right? Now, basically what it's saying is that the system is telling you, look, you should use const with the constructor to improve performance, right? And one of the ways basically is just that with const, it will have to like kind of redraw, reload that particular widget every time, right? So I can just, click on add const everywhere, but wherever it does not need one, I remove. So there's a max text. Okay, so this is for text span. So I was talking about text widgets, right? Here, save. So I hope I'm not okay. I shouldn't do this. I'm trying to do it inside the style. No, it's a separate it's a separate property of the text widget, not the style. So max lines, I could say the maximum line should be 2, right? It's just the maximum number of lines to show, right? You have overflow, right? What this does is that it will specify how the visual overflow is handled, especially when the text is too long, right? You can say it should be text um, overflow dot ellipsis, which is dot dot dot, right? So style, text style, we have text align to align it to the left or right. Or so how you can know the properties you have, you just when you hover on this and then move, you can just see, you just scroll down and you can see everything that you actually would have, right? Excuse me. So yes, so another one we have is image. Image is also a widget, right? Let's see, where does this end? This ends here. So image is also a widget, right? Of course, it's just used to display image in an application, right? So the way images are done is a bit different. So I'm going to show you how. Well, first of all, these are image class. Now we have, you can see 4 things there. Image is the generic image loader that is provided by a class called the image provider, right? Now, what we have kind of like 4 methods, right? You can call. You have the image.asset. What the image.asset loads images from your Flutter project what asset, right? I'll show you from your Flutter project what asset folder. So it will load it. So it's more like a local kind of thing. Image.file will load images from system folder. Image.memory will load image from memory, and then image.network will load image from your network, like online, a URL or something, right? So let's just do for assets, right? Now, how you do that is you come down to your projects. Listen, I like to just click here. You need to make sure that you are not opening. You want to create a folder in the same hierarchy, right? So I'm just going to click here first, like out of this. And then I'm going to click the plus icon, and I'm going to create a folder called assets, right? Assets. And then you see that here. So what happens is in the assets, I can now put in any image I have, right? So let me see if I can just get an image somewhere. I'll just drag it and then just drop it. So okay, let me see if I can just drag this and drop. So I'm going to drag this and I'm going to drop it in the assets what folder. So we have this image called lion.jpg. So the naming is very important, very, very important, right? So I'm going to say image dot assets. Now, what this takes is what's more like the asset here, what we need to provide is more like a directory, a link to it, right? A link towards it. So we have our folder in the root level called assets. And inside assets, we now have our image, which is lion.jpg, right? That's actually how you do that. Now, part of the properties of the image stuff is you can, when you just press Control Space, it could show you a lot of things. Alignment, cache, color, fit, box.fit, and all those stuff, height. There's height, there's width. So I could say height should be, let's say 50. Width can be 50. And then the fitting, so it's just how the image is going to kind of how it's going to inscribe the image into the space that is allocated. So I'm going to just say box fit dot let's just say contain, right? Box fit dot contain. So now I'm going to just Control S, right? But you don't see anything. So this is what shows up. It says unable to load assets, right? What is it saying? Assets/lion is not what found. This asset is not found. Now, the reason it's not found is because we have failed to kind of set up for that, like prepare for it. Flutter needs to be able to know that, okay, I need to kind of, there's a directory like this that exists that holds something, right? So you go to your pubspec.yaml, scroll down. So you can see here in this line, say to add access to your application, add an assets section like this. So what I'll just do, I'll just highlight down to this place and uncomment it. I usually use control and I think backslash, yes, backslash, right? Or you can just, manually just come here, I think, and just delete this guy, right? But you need to make sure everything is in the same line. So that's why I, prefer to go this route. Indentation matters. So you can see this file does not exist, right? Actually, we don't have this, right? So, and whenever you need to understand, whenever you change something in your pubspec.yaml, it's Flutter will need to actually kind of reload to get it. It could be that you want to get a library or something, but it has to reload. So I'm going to delete the first one. Now the next one, what I need is the folder is called assets. Now assets is actually like, so assets, which is this folder, right? Slash, what's the name of the file? Name of the file is lion.jpg. So this is it, right? We have this here. So you give it a bit of time because it needs to kind of now like reload and make sure that everything is, so you can see it runs Flutter pub get, right? Resolves dependencies just to be sure that, everything is actually what's fine. So everything looks fine here. So let's, kind of, let's try a refresh, hot reload. Yes, and you can see the image actually now shows, right? So kind of let's make it a bit bigger, right? 200, Control S. Yeah, so that's actually that. You can see that's how you actually put in an image, right? Yeah, so that's that. So another one we have is icons. Another widgets we have are icons, right? So icons is just a widget used to display, a glyph from a font that is described in your icon. We have this icon data class that kind of just has icons that you need, right? So let's say icon, right? I'll click enter. So you have to give it it takes an icon, and we get that from the icons. I could just say icons dot, right? And then it shows me a lot of icons, and you can see this icon data here. That's where it's getting it from, right? So let me see. Let's access alarm. Let's see what that is, right? I'm just going to Control S, and you can see the icons here. So that's how you get, there are a lot of icons, right, that are available for you to make use of, right? So that's actually just, an introduction to widgets, right? That's basically just an introduction to widgets. There are a lot of widgets, so it's not something you can sit down and start, playing around with widgets and getting everything, right? No, there are a lot of them. So some of them you get to use them, you have to research to know, okay, this is what I want to this is how I want to lay out my UI. And I'll teach you guys something, right? How to read a UI, so you know how to properly arrange, how to arrange that. Yeah, so that's that. Now, the next thing is introduction to layouts, right? Let's now talk about layouts. Okay. Now, since the core concept of Flutter, right, is this whole statement of everything is a widget, right? So Flutter has a user interface layout functionality into the widget itself. It kind of incorporates that, right? So there are widgets like the container, the center, you have align. We'll look at a few of them, right? That helps you to, the purpose of that widget is just to lay out the user interface. That's actually just the purpose, right? To lay out the interface. So think of them like, okay, there are ways of just arranging your widgets, just arranging stuff, placing stuff here and there. Okay, so there are basically two groups we're going to be looking at. There are basically two groups. One is you know, a widget that supports a single child, right? A layout widget that supports a single child. They are called single child widgets. And then we have the widgets that support multiple what child or supports children. Now, for the single child widgets, right? Basically, this category of widgets, they just have only one widget as each child. And every widget will have a special layout functionality. So a typical example is what we just used here, which is the center what widget. You can see it has a what child, right? It has just a child what widget with respect to its what parents, right? Now we also have a container. This container widget here, it has a child. It takes what a child. So this is a single widget what single child widget. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot pass a multiple child widget in a single child widget. You can, but multiple child widget takes children, right? Single child widget just takes a child. Okay, so let me do let's see if we can let's do let's do something else. So let me just clear the whole center, so that we can just use some other kind of widgets, right, while I'm explaining. So in the body of this scaffold, which is just like a container, like a canvas for you, right, I'm going to call a single child widget called container. And container takes a child, right? It takes what? A child. Now, but before that, let me style the container, because it seems that there are a lot of things you can do. A decoration to kind of decorate your that, and it uses the box decoration class, right? Now, inside of the box decoration class, there are a lot of things you can put there, like the color. I could just say colors dot let's still stick with amber, right? And then separate that by a comma, and a border. I can also give it a border, right? Using the border side. There's a class called border side. And what border side does, when you hover on these things, you just know what you need to pass into. It takes a color, it takes a width, it takes a style, and it takes a stroke align if you actually want that. So I just need the width to be a double. It's double data type, so 1.0. And okay, sorry, not border side, because I'm saying this argument border side can't be assigned to the type of box border. So you can see this border here it requires a box border. So what I need to do, there is a yes, there's a border. Yeah, good. So you can see the border here takes what's this top, right, left, this, right? So let's say for top, it takes it from the border side, right? And then I can say a width of 1.0. And then for the color, um let me just say color dot black. So I'm just going to duplicate this with Control D, because I've set up that shortcut on my left, right, and then bottom border. So this is more like having different um colors, right, for each of the borders. So let's see, do we have a colors dot blue? Okay. Do you have a colors dot red? Yeah. And do you have a colors dot green? Okay. So now you can see that the container is a single child widget. What we just did is to decorate the what container, but it expects a what child, right? It expects a what child. So you can see all this here. These are the things that it actually what takes. Now you can see I can remove this child, and we are fine. There's no errors. I'll just run this, right? And you can see we have this what container with this background. Now we are not seeing those lines, so I'm going to do, well, if you look well, the bottom here is green. Here left, what do we have for left? Blue. So it's not looking like it's clear. So what I'll just do is I can wrap this container in another single child widget called a padding, right? A padding. And padding will kind of just like give it an inner, it will give it an inner space, right? Inner space. So I'm just going to run this. So you can see it just shifts it out. So let's increase the size of the width. Let's say 2, so that we kind of see this 2. So that's the size of the border. So let's run that. Okay, so I think we can let's just do something more. We're not really doing design per se, we're just understanding stuff. So yeah, so you can see that, right? You can see this. Now, so the like I said, if you check the container, right, the container actually has what it should have a widget, but the widget is not required. So you can just actually design a container, right? That's why I see this question mark sign. This is nullable. You must not give it that particular listen. Okay, so but let's give it a child, and I want the child property to be I want it to also be a container, right? I want to give it a container. So I'm kind of like nesting stuff. So I'm just going to duplicate this and put this here. Or better still, yeah, I'll just put it there. Let me Control S. Okay, I think we need to close out. It's expecting yeah. So it's something you need to be careful of. So you can see we have 2 of it, right? We have 2 of it. Okay. Now, so what I just did, I gave it another container, but container also has a child, which takes like, what's it called? So I can give it, so let me just say the child of this. Let me just now say, okay, fine, take a text, right? Take a text and say this is layout, right? So I'll just Control S to save that. And then this is what happens. Now, did anybody that understands why we just had this now? Did anybody that can try to, just try, right? Is there anybody that can try to just tell me why it just did like this? Pelumi, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Because it took the size of the text.
Thank you very much. So it just took the size of the word text, right? It took the size of the text. Thank you very much. Right. So someone is asking, is there no single input for properties like border to represent all the sides, right? So you can see there is actually what is it called? None. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that network. Okay, so let's just get back. Please, where did you lose me?
Child text layout.
Okay, so
This
I
is the
think
layout.
you got the response that Pelumi gave now, right?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. So yeah, so for the text, we're actually seeing some properties now, right? Did I show? Okay, yeah. So you can just play around with that and look out for stuff, right? So he answered why, this just he took the size of the word text, okay? I could do something like this. Right? So what that does is to kind of just, move it to the next line. That's a new line thing. So you can see it just expands. It takes the size of the child widget, not just text, the child widget. So container wraps whatever you put in the child, except you give it a specific width and height. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's actually that. So let's see what else can we actually look at, right? Containers. I've talked about containers. I've seen center now, right? I don't think I need to show you that again, but I can decide to wrap this widget with a center, right? And kind of, when I Control S, you can see it just brings it here. That's just, so it's also a single child widget, okay? Now, for the multiple child widgets, you've actually seen it, or I've used it. We have the rows. Row allows you to arrange its children in a horizontal manner. We have column, right? Vertical manner. We have a list view, right? And it just helps you to arrange the children as a list. We have grid view for arranging children as a gallery. We have expanded. You learn about expanded. Basically, what expanded does, it makes the children of a row or a column, the children of a row or a column to occupy the maximum possible area. Don't worry, we'll work on that. We have table, right? We have stack, right? We have flow. Those are multiple child widgets. That's why you see where we used the square bracket, right? We use a square bracket. So let's try to build something now. Let's try to actually build something. So let me clear what we have here. Yeah, let me just clear what we have. Let me see, what do we have? This. Okay, so let me clear this. Let's just start from the now. Before I go, one of the things you will learn, right, in in your development, especially with me and moving forward, is you're going to learn to abstract stuff, right? Imagine having to build a let's say a landing page, a home screen, right? And you want to design everything in one file. It's possible you have over 500, 600, 700 lines of code, right? One of the things you learn is how to create widgets, use widgets, reuse widgets, right? Another term for that is basically componentization, but how you're going to reuse widgets such that you can create it the same way you just create your class, right? In Dart, and you just create an instance or you just call it. It's the same way, right? So we are going to create some external stuff, right? And then we're going to reuse it, right? We're going to reuse it. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's see. I want to so I'm going to clear this, or maybe I can just leave this. So first of all, this is what I mean, right? We have this my app here. This is the entry point which runs this my app, which is a stateless widget. But we have this stateful widget here, which is a different widget on its own, but it's still in the same file. So it's like we now have two widgets in one file, which you shouldn't really, have, right? There are different classes, so you shouldn't have two classes in one file. You can just separate that, right? But I'm going to just clear out all this, right? We kind of don't need it anymore, right? But of course, this will shout because the material app actually requires a widget, something to display to the screen when the user opens the application, right? So I'm going to I'll leave that, and then I want to create a new file for a separate widget. I'll go to my lib folder, right click, go to new file, and I'll call it products. We want to just see how let's say products.Dart, right? Now, I want to create a stateless widget. So you can just use the shortcuts. When you type STL, it will just kind of create that for you, right? And then you give it a name. So I'll call it product. So you can see it extends the stateless widget, right? It creates a constructor. It overrides the build method, and this is what actually going to build the UI. So it returns a widget, right? That's why I can see this here from that. So this will return a widget, which the widget we are returning here is just a placeholder. Now, what does a placeholder look like? So first of all, what this widget we have is a product called product. So I'm going to pass product here. So I'm going to say product. So you can see, I can just call it and it will import that. You can see it has imported it here. So when I just run this, we'll lose this guy. So this is what a placeholder looks like, right? It's just a placeholder. So we're going to give it some actual words, stuff, right? We're going to give it some stuff. Now I'm going to teach you something very, very, it's going to be like, so let's just do it this way. I'll design it and then also show you the concept of building it, kind of how you can reuse stuff. Now, this is kind of this is going to be like it's a bit much, right? But just take time and just follow me, okay? Just take time and follow me. So first of all, it's a product. So think of a product, right? Your e-commerce applications where you have list of products, maybe Jumia and whatever, right? Where you list, or maybe your contact app on your phone where you have list of your contacts, right? So kind of just want to display something like that, but we're going to call it a product. So first of all, we want to use a single widget, we want to use a layout widget. And the layout widget we're going to be using is a container, right? We'll use a container, right? And a container has a child. So in the child, we want to pass in, we need another layout widget. Now, I want to be able to arrange things, right, in a row. So I'm going to call the row widget, right? And the row widget is a child widget, right? It takes children, right? It takes children. And you can see the square bracket once I clicked enter. So now let's pass in the children, right? So the first children I want to pass, the first child rather, sorry, is an image, which is a widget, right? So you can explicitly just do this here and say widgets. You can also do this. So here we need to pass in what's the link. So we already have something for this in here. So let me just, okay. So not this rather, sorry, image.assets. Yeah, so we already have assets /lion.jpg, right? So that's one widget. And then another thing we want to pass in. So let me just save, right? So this is what we have here now, right? This is what we have here. The image is actually large in itself, right? The image itself, from the properties of this image, right? It's actually the dimensions is 1431 by 2048. So it's actually large, the width and the height. So that's why I remember it's just based on the container and the row, it will just take up the size of that. So, but of course, we do not want that, right? We actually don't want that. So let's just, but for now, let's just move and I'll show you what to do. Now you can see there's this kind of like an error stuff here. Basically what this says, it says write overflowed by 81 pixels. You can also see it in your debug console. It's called a render flex with overflow. So it means that, look, this guy is going way, way, way past, the layouts that we have, right? Way past it. Of course, so that's that thing one thing you always fight in Flutter. As well, of course, you defeat it. So the next thing I want to pass is a container. I need a container. Remember, we are doing is arranging things based on a row. So a container, and I want this container to have a column. So the container has a child, and I want it to have a column to arrange things vertically. So a column, I think I didn't spell that well, right? A column. Now a column has children, right? It's a multi-distance. So I'll just save that. There's no change, right? There's no change yet. We still have the render overflow. Now for the children, I just want to have a let's say 2 texts. Let me call it HP laptop, right? For now, let me not bother about styling. MacBook, right? So let's just use this for now. So I'm going to just Control S, right? And save this. So you see, we can't actually even see these two things, right? Because this guy is just taking up he has taken up everything, right? So one thing you can do is to size your image. Of course, whenever you're using images, you need to be you don't just take any image anywhere from the internet. It has a dimension, right? So you have to make sure that. So I could just let me see. So I can say, okay, you know what, take a height of 50 and a width of 50. So let's see what this will do. And then I'll just Control S, right? So you can see the image now is here, right? And then the MacBook, the laptop is here, right? So it's still not looking, you know, as nice as we would expect it to look, but we are getting there. Don't worry, we are getting there. So one of the things that I need to do is kind of like a so let's see, can we make this 100? Let's do 100 100 100 100. Okay, so that will make this image a bit bigger. So our text is big. You can actually reduce it, but let's not worry much about that. Now, I kind of want to arrange this thing well. Now, one thing I need you to note is that first of all, we have a row, which is row goes from left to right. Okay. And then we have inside the row, we have two widgets here. An image, right, which is taking up 100 width of height and length. Okay. And then we have a container also. And in that container, we have a column, right? We have what, a column that has two children, which is this two guys you're seeing here. But of course, the alignment is all wrong, right? So let's see what we can do. First of all, I'm just going to now, one of the things that interesting thing about the column is that you can actually space things evenly using the main axis alignment. And I'll just say main axis alignment dot space what evenly. So to give them equal what space, right? So you can see equal what space for the column. That is the text, and the what MacBook, they will have what equal what space, right? So let me do some little things like let's say let me give some padding to this guy. Let's say, so when we have this edge insets dot all, right, this just creates insets, right? You will learn about this, but this is more like 5 from the left, 5 from the right, 5 from top, 5 from bottom. You have other values like dots. You have from LTRV, which is from left, you know, left, top, right, back. You have only where you get to decide, okay, it's only left. You have symmetric. Symmetric is either you're giving only the vertical, the same thing, or you're giving only the what's it called, horizontal. Then you have from a view pattern. So we get to play around with all these things as time goes on. So let's use 5. Now the container itself, so remember I talked about expanded, right? I mentioned expanded as part of you know, a multi-child widget, right? It's basically used to make your the children in a row or going to occupy the maximum possible area. So this is a child in this row. So I could just, and let's see the difference now. I'm going to wrap it. So I'll say wrap with widget, and I'll just call the widget name, which is expanded, right? And then I'll just save that, right? And then you can see that error goes out. So what happens is that they now takes up just the space that it needs. It does not overflow. It takes up just the space that it actually what needs, right? Okay, so yeah, so that's that, right? So this is basically what we have. I know it looks very, very weird, and we're like, okay, Wait, what's going on? Don't worry, calm down. So in this row, just like we did this space evenly here, I think I can just, kind of like on the row, let's also space evenly on the row, which is the row is the image and the text, right? So which is just here, and then I'll save that, right? Okay. Now I can use what we call a card widget to kind of put it in a card. I kind of want them to be in a card. So remember, it's the row that holds these two. So I can wrap this row with a widget called what? Card, right? There's a widget called what? Card. And it's a single child widget. So it just takes a child. And then you can see this is what we have. So this is the card that you're seeing here, this whole thing, right? With the white background. Remember, it was black. Now, let's assume this container, let's say it has a height. I'm just playing around of 200, width of 200, and then I just save that, right? So it won't give any effect because this is the full container, but we can, let's see. Okay, so we're going to do that in the, what's it called? In the main, what's it called? In the material app, the main.app, right? So, but this is our card, right? Everything is just taking up the necessary space because we don't actually have more things, right? And but let's just say, let's leave the so I want to also give the container, sorry, the card a padding, just to kind of make things a bit, let's see, padding. Let me see what it's going to look like, right? So this is what it is going to look like. So yeah, so this is just we playing around, right? So it's not like this is just us playing, we're just playing around, right? Okay, so now this is it. What I actually wanted to show you was the how to reuse stuff. Now, the reason you're seeing this here is because this product, which is in this separate class, right? It is actually what is called what here. So you can notice that I don't have to have this whole guy, this whole class. I don't need to have it here, right? I don't need to have it here. Okay, it doesn't actually make any sense. Since I have it here, I can just import it down to this what place, and I am what fine. We are actually what okay, right? So let's see. What did I want to do? Okay. Now, what another thing I want to show you is this. What if, right? This is actually not what I want to do. I want to show a list of these things. Well, I'm just showing one, right? Now, I cannot, this is one way to do it, right? I'm just going to show you. Now, in the home here, where we have this, right? I can decide to, create a different kind of thing. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this product to home, which is what it should actually be, right? And then I'm going to create a file called home.dart, right? And then let it be a stateless widget called home, right? Which I'm just going to, so I'll import this by clicking on quick fix import. So when I save this, we have just this, kind of empty stuff because home is a placeholder. Now, if I change home to actually return a scaffold, right? And just Control S, you have a blank white canvas, right? Now, so let's do something. Let's say app bar. Let me do this quickly. Title. Let's say product. Okay, sorry, it takes a widget. So a text widget, right? And then let's just go straight to what sorry, not in there. The body is outside of this. So body, right? So the body can now be what products, right? The body can now be what product, because product is also a what widget, right? So that's how we are reusing stuff. So this is now how it actually what looks, which is the right way. right? This is what we have done. Now, but I want to be able to display more than one of this. I don't want to display just one. I want to be able to display more than one. Okay, so that is where we use another kind of multi-child widget, which is the list view. We can now use the list view. So I'm going to return a list view instead, which is this, right? So the list view takes a lot of things, right? A lot of things. You can just go over and you see a lot of things, right? So let's see. First of all, it takes, some children. Now the children there are just widgets. Okay, so I'm just going to say this, which I can add as much of this as I want. Each of them are widgets, right? They're all widgets. So when I run that, you can see we have more of this, but because it's a list, it's actually what's scrollable, right? It actually was scrollable. So I can just do some properties. There's what called the shrink wrap, set it to true. Now, you can hover. It basically creates a scrollable linear array of widgets from an explicit list. Now, let me just run this, right? Okay. So, kind of just like to wrap stuff, and then I could actually give a padding if I want, right? It all depends on what you want. So, let's say, so this, let me use this so from the left, I'll just say, let's say 2.0. From the top, I could say 10, or let's just say 8.0. From the right, I could also do 2.0 for uniformity. And the bottom, well, I could also do 8.0, right? Remember, it takes a double, right? So save that. Let's see if there's any effect. Yeah, kind of just moves things together, right? So now the thing is, let me just talk about the concept of reusable widgets, right? Here we are reusing this actually, but not in the best of way, because we notice we have the same item repeated here. So how can we have different items, right? How can we have different items? So that will take us back to the product widget. So if you notice, all these items, we are hard coding it, we are giving it the value here. But why not we just create it in such a way that when we call it, we can now pass in the value? So the same way you create a class with no constructor, right? With no parameter. You initialize an object, but you're not passing in a parameter, but you have a constructor that takes parameters. Still just the same concept, right? So for the image, right, instead of giving, first of all, you need to identify the things you want to change. I would want the image to change. I probably want the first text and the second text to change. Maybe you can change anything. You can decide that it's the padding. You can decide that it's the background color, like a lot of things, right? You guys will do that, play that yourself. So let's just focus on three: the image, the text, and the two texts, right? So I'm going to now create a final variable. So I'm going to say now image is actually a string, right? So I could just say string image. So instead of do final string image, final string text, final string, I'll just say text 1, text 2. So that should just apply for, so I basically just created 3 variables, final variables. So I have to now initialize them. The reason I made them final is so that I can initialize them in the constructor. So this means that when I am calling this product widget, I have to pass these things. If you do not want to pass them, I can decide to make this nullable, right? With this, I'll take out this required and I'm fine. So if you notice, there's no error. Here was shouting before, but it's no longer shouting. But the moment I take this out, make it required, right? Take this out, you can see here, it's shouting because it is expecting stuff, right? So what am I going to do? So this image, that is a string. So instead of putting this, I'm just going to pass in image here, right? Instead of saying this guy, I'm going to just say text1, and then here I'm going to say text2. Okay, so now when I'm now creating the list, I have to now pass in those variables. So the image, I'm just going to paste this. So image, I'll reuse it. I'm not sure I want to start getting more images now. But for the text, let's say, sorry. So it's a named parameter. Remember we talked about named parameters, right? So when you're calling it, you have to pass in the name. So text1, so let's still use HP laptop. Text2, so let's use MacBook. Okay, so I'm just going to delete these guys, right? And then I'll just Control D to kind of duplicate stuff. So let's just do 4. So here I can say ACR, Lenovo. So now I'm changing them. Toshiba, where are they? Dell, right? So let's even just kind of make this interesting. So HP, let's say 130K, right? Asha, let's say 200K. Sorry. Please, these values are false, right? Disclaimer, please. Lenovo, this is not an attack on any brand, please. Toshiba, I'm just playing around. Thank you very much. Nobody should come after me, please. Dell, 5K. Don't mind me. I'm just playing around, right? Okay, so when I just Control S or just run this, right? So you can see we have different values, right? So that's actually me teaching you componentization and being able to reuse widgets. And of course, I need to expect you to start making use of it now, because the task I'm going to give you, you have to create some widgets, and I don't want to see every widget in one screen. So you try as much as possible to start getting used to it. So it's also very best practice to for UIs that are not going to be modified, you can just declare them using what const, right? The interesting thing is that so if you notice here, I have const on all these products. So instead of that, I can just use const here, right? And that solves that for all of them. Could just also declare, so you don't have to rebuild, that. So this is just me doing some cleanup, right? Okay, so any questions so far, right? Any questions so far, you can just raise your hand, or drop your message on the chat. I'm actually going to be looking at the chats. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, so let's go to the next. Okay, so last thing we'll look at gestures, right? Or is there anything else to? Is there anything? Let me check. Is there anything I would want to do here? Let's see. Well, I think that's basically that. Yeah, that's basically that. That's basically that. So let's look at gestures, right? Let's look at gestures. Now, the concept of gestures, right? So gestures are, they're actually a way for a user to interact with your mobile, your phones. You make use of phones, right? You're able to click and tap and all those stuff, right? So any touch-based device application generally. So they are basically just physical actions or movements of a user, in the intention of probably activating a specific control of the mobile device. So they are simple as tapping the screen, right? Or more complex actions like, trying to drag, press and hold, drag, and all this stuff, right? So now some of the widely used gestures, let me just come here and just show you. We have a gesture detector here, right? Sorry, not gesture settings, gesture detector, right? Now, some of the widely used of now you have on tap, you have tap, you have double tap, right? Some of you just tap something and you want something to happen, that's touching the surface with your fingertip for a short period of time, and then you release it. There's double tap, that's 2 times, right? There's drag, right? You touch the surface with your thing and then you move it in a particular manner, right? We have that here. There is on force, on long press cancel. There are a lot of things here, right? On tap down. We have on drag. We have pinch. We have spread. There are a lot of gestures, right? So Flutter uses this gesture detector widget, right? It's actually is a non-visual widget, but it's just primarily used for detecting the user's gesture, right? So let's see which one we can actually use, right? So I'm going to let's assume I tap on, on this particular product, I'm going to wrap it in a gesture detector. I want to to see if I can register something when I tap on this HP laptop. So I can just click on this and then click on the light bulb and then wrap with widgets, right? And I will state the widget, which is gesture detector, right? So it has a problem because I'm calling it on a const constructor. And of course, because of the fact that this gesture detector, you're taking an action that will kind of may rebuild the UI, right? You have to take out that const. So I'm just going to take this out. So gesture detector, and I can use the const here, and that's fine. So let's start with just the on tap, right? So it's a function. So you have to do something, you have to take an action. I just want to take one action here, and is to just print something to our console here, right? So let's be sure. So I'm going to just say, okay, so I think we should use this, or did I? Okay, no, hold on. Did I use a capital? Yeah, I used uppercase. So print, right? So what do we want to print? Let's just say tapped, right? Tapped. Could just say tapped, right? And then of course, you shouldn't use print in production code just for debugging. We're just using it to log something, so we'll see it. So I'm just going to Control S, right? And now I'm going to just, since I can use my finger, but I can use the mouse also because I'm actually kind of. So I'm just going to use the mouse, and then you can see tapped is printed here. So that's how we register a gesture, right? Let's see if we can do on double tap, right? I'm going to save that. Now, so on double tap, we want to print tapped. Now I'm going to press once. Once doesn't do anything, but twice. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? Okay. So you can play around with what it has, right? I could also kind of let me just use this to show you guys. Let me just use this period to show you guys some widgets, right? Like the let's say I want to create a method. I can also create it outside here, but let me just create a function called show dialog, right? It's actually listen function called show dialog, because to actually display dialog, it takes a context and a builder. Now let me just put this here. Now builder is what will actually build, what's it called, whatever widgets we want to actually pass in. So I'm going to just delete this, control space, and then it takes a builder, it takes a context actually as a parameter. I'm going to use the second one because we have a few things to, right? So it needs to return, right? It expects that if I undo this, say the body might not complete normally because no causing null to be returned, but the return type is widget, so we need to return a widget. So I'm going to say return. Now let's introduce ourselves to, or let me introduce to alert dialog, right? And you see what it is. Alert dialog takes a title, which is a widget of a text. Let me just say new, let me just say this product, or basically let's just use HP laptop, right? It takes a content, right, which is also a widget, right? Can also use a text that says this is the newest laptop in town, right? And then it takes actions, right? Actions are basically, you've seen a dialogue before, like a pop-up where you can cancel and, just do stuff. So it takes, I can explicitly just state that this returns a list of widgets. And let's just say, let me use, so there are a lot of buttons we can use. Let me just type buttons. Let me see if it will show others, right? There are a lot of buttons. There's icon button, there's text button. So I could use text button, which takes a function on, it has an onPress function, which you have to, it just listens to what you want to do and takes an action, right? I'm going to use this, and then a child. So the child for the text button is actually a widget, right? And I'm going to use a text for it to kind of say, I'll just say okay. And then when I click okay, what do I want to do? Right? For now, I kind of don't want to do anything. I just want to let's just display this first. So we have this function, right, to show this, right? So what do I want to do? So on tapping of, what's it called? Where is it? This guy. I kind of want to call show. Don't know if I'll get that. Show dialogue, right? That's kind of what I would want to do, but let's see. So okay, so let's see. Let's just see if this will work. So we have an error. Yeah, set state. This overlay. Yeah. I think I saw that coming. Right. So the problem. Let's see. Let's see the problem here. Home main.dat. Well, definitely not our main. Are we on our main.dat? Okay, no, we are on the home. Okay, so home, yes. So this show dialog is actually the issue, right? Where we're actually placing it. First of all, the show dialog in itself is a what's it called? It's like it's a user is a defined function already in Flutter, right? It's actually a function that's been defined already in Flutter. So we kind of don't want to call that again, right? So I could do something like this, right? Just to, let's see. So we still need to, yeah, it's not defined. So let's see if we are, okay, well, this is actually a stateless widget, right? So we kind of, you know, let me see something. This is not the way I would do this, but yeah, so let's do something. Let's take this out of here, right? We could take this out of here, right? Let's say to a new file. Can actually just take it to a new file. Hold on. New file. Let's call it dialog.dart. And then so let's see. Oh, don't worry. I need to implement so let's say STL, right? This is actually no, you know what? Hold on. So let's say void show my dialog. Hope I'm spelling this well. Kind of just right. And then let's say let's make this return a widgets. But now the thing is this, it's of type future, and I don't want to get into this right now. The concept of future and async and await right now. So you know what? Let's just leave this. That would just complicate things for you guys right now. So don't worry, let's leave that out for now because I don't want to bring up that. That's a bit further. That's a bit further down the line, right? That's a bit further down the line, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want us to, kind of do that. So let me see if I can just do it here. Let me see something. Let's say I have a show dialog function, but I don't want to hope it's inside here. Let's say it takes a context, right? Okay, so and then let's call the default, because remember, like I said, this show dialog is already an inbuilt function that's been created in Flutter already. So I'm basically just creating a function, right, that will actually just call it. That's just what I just did here. I'm just creating a function that will actually just call this guy. Let me put a comma here so that these guys will go down. Okay, it's not saving because we have here, this is expecting something. So let's see if I hope I didn't use the same name. Okay, on the score. Yeah, show dialog, right? So yeah, I hope this doesn't give us a future again because I wouldn't want to touch that. Okay, so let's see. I have errors again. Well, you face this a lot, so let's face it together so you have an understanding of errors and how to also debug them. So let's see. Flutter this assertion, debug log true with navigator. The relevant that was minor app. So we'll probably have to rebuild this, but let me call this as a function. It takes a context. So let me just okay, let's do this. If it doesn't work, then we'll kind of just refresh it. So kind of like a hot restart and not reload, right? There's reload and restart. Okay, so yeah, so part of gestures, right? There's dismissible, there's draggable, there's long press, there's drag target, there's a lot, right? Which you can play around with, right? So so what we have is I've tapped this, nothing happens, right? Okay, what we have is a double tap, right? So you can see when I double tap, you can see our alert dialog pops up, right? Which takes, so this is the title, HP laptop, this is the message, and this is a button, a text button, right? Currently, when I click on it, nothing happens because I did not say anything should happen here, right? I didn't say anything should actually what happened, right? But you can dismiss it just by clicking out. So let's change this to just on tab, right? Control S. So I'll just tap this and then it gives me that, right? Okay, so yeah, so that's basically that. So we've been able to cover widgets, we've been able to cover layouts, we've been able to talk about gestures, right? There are a lot of widgets that, of course, that even till the end of the cohort, we will not be able to use all of them, right? We'll not be able to use all of them. That's going to be a lot of things, right? So let me see if we can. Let me just see if I can introduce you guys to something else, right? I want to see if I can do a navigation with you, but I'm considering the time. There's a lot I will need to explain about state management before, we possibly go into routing. So someone says, is there a way to make the picture round? Yes, there is, right? There are so many, there are more than one ways, right? There are more than one ways to do that. You want us to do that now? What's his name? Daniel. Do you want us to do that now? Okay, okay. So I'll just do that and then we'll round up, right? We'll have to treat navigation separately because I have to kind of explain state management and a few other stuff, right? Okay, so well, there are a lot of ways. There are about 3, 4, 5 ways or so we can actually do that. So let's see. So that's on the image, right? So let's go to the widget itself. So you see the interesting thing about this. So any change we make here, it will just happen across board, right? But if we imagine if we kind of, just started doing everything one by one, trying to recreate stuff, duplicate stuff, you now have to do whatever it is we want to do. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have about 5 or 6 lists, 6 items here. So I'll just go to these are image.assets. Let's see. Way number one. Let's see. Let's wrap this with a container. I'll wrap this with a container and then I'll give it an equal height of let's say width of 120. Let's still use the 120, height of 120. Now, since I'm using this, I can take out this width height here of the image and then just use the fit property, and then I'll say box fit dot cover. Yes, contain, there's cover, just play around and see the effects. So you can just, when you hover on it, to actually just show you, right? So let's just run this and see what we have. Let's see any change. So things is still kind of looking like this in a way because we just put it in a container. Let me see if I can remember using container. There's a clip behavior, right? Clip behavior is just kind of way to just from the actual word clip, you're now clipping the path. And there's this, you have clip.anti-alias with save layer. I think it should be anti-layers. Let's do this one first and let's see. Okay. Yeah, we have decoration. Yeah, so we actually needs there's a particular, so it says what field assertion, decoration not equals no, and or clip behavior clip.none is not true, right? So we need the container to have a decoration if we are going to use this clip behavior. So box decoration, and then in a box decoration you can decide the shape, and there's this thing called box shape.circle. So yeah, so this will give it a rounded stuff, right? And then let's see, you now have to play around with this. So if I say box fits dot let's try dot cover, right? So yeah, this gives us a rounded stuff, right? Yeah, the margins and paddings and stuff, you can I can decide to just make this 100, right? So it's actually too close to the edge here, which is the container itself. If I'm not mistaken, container has a margin. Yes, it has a margin. But a lot of times you may want to use this thing. So I just want to give a margin just for the image, which is left. And I'll say, let's say 8.0 and save that. So that should shift it a bit, right? So this is one way, right? This is one way. Now, there's also another way where you use what we call a clipped R, that's clipped R rects, right? Basically, you're going to define like a rounded triangle, right? Okay, so let me show you that way. I'm going to remove this widget, so we just have this. Then I'll wrap it with so let me run this so we get what we had before. And then wrap with widget. It's called clip rect. Yes, this guy. And all you just say is what border radius should be. I think border radius dot circular, and then you choose, I could say 100. So let's see. Yeah. Or so it all depends, or maybe 120. So you just have to do your manipulation till you kind of get what you actually want, right? Then there is another one. Or let me see if I can remember. Okay. I think. Wait, let me see. I don't know if I can wrap it with. No, so it's not something you wrap with, but it's a widget on its own called Circle Avatar, right? It's a widget on its own. So you give it a radius of let's say 50, and then you give it, let me put a comma here, and then you now give it a background image, right? So background image, so usually this background image comes from an image provider, which could be from, so I'm just going to pass in image here. Let's see. But I usually use this for, yeah, actually usually use this for network image though. Images you're getting from, a network, right? But let me say image, let's say image dot assets. Let's see if this will work. I usually use it for just, yeah. So the argument image can be assigned to image provider object. So yeah. So you just need to, you probably use a network, can use a network image, then pass in a URL, right? Maybe an image you're fetching from the back that's coming from the back end. So those are the ways, right? You can actually, kind of create rounded images, right? You can also use, I think you can use card. Yeah, you can actually use a card, right? Card, you can actually give it a corner radius. So you just manipulate till you get what you need. Okay, so yeah, this is where we're going to stop for today. But a task is going to be given to you before the end of this thing. You should see it, right? You're going to build a UI for me, right? You're going to build a UI for me. That's something that will keep you pretty much busy for the next 2 days, right? So I'm going to make it as not very complex, but part of the things I like to do in my class or wherever I'm teaching is to instill a sense of research. You need to be able to research things, right? You need to be able to research things because you're going to get a job one day, right? You're going to be working, and trust me, you will face things you've never met before. And if you do not have the skill of researching for things, you really, really struggle. So you may have to, I'll tell you the widgets you should use. Some of them you may have to go and figure it out, go and look for it, find it, go and browse, wherever, get it done. But please understand it. It's not enough to just submit a task. Understand it, know it for yourself. Okay. Are there questions before we round up? Any question? Okay, so that's clear enough. I believe you guys have consumed enough, and you probably need to go back and watch this video. So they're ready to be available almost immediately after 5 p.m. Right? Let's say between the hours of 5 to 6 p.m. it should be, or latest maybe 10, right? Or maybe tomorrow. But that's by the way. Well, thank you guys very much. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you in the next class on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.